Welcome to week 5 of our series called The Power of 40. I hope you've been enjoying the series. I hope you've been challenged and inspired. I want to challenge you with one question today. Do you believe that your life is an illustration? Let me define illustration for you. Illustration is an example serving to clarify or prove something. So I ask you again, do you believe your life is an example serving to clarify or prove something? In the Old Testament, God used prophets to be the mouthpiece to the people. Because the Holy Spirit wasn't applied to everybody like it is now because of Jesus. In the Old Testament, God said, I'm going to choose you to convey this story, to illustrate my love, to illustrate my judgment to the people, to warn them that if they don't get their act together, this is what's going to happen. Well, there's a man in the Old Testament called Ezekiel. Ezekiel was such a man. He was a prophet of God, being the mouthpiece to the people. He lived in the 6th century BC. That's when he started to prophesy. Now at this moment, our text is Ezekiel chapter 4. Ezekiel is banished or exiled from Jerusalem, which is the Hebrews' home where the temple resides, where God's presence resides through the temple. But the Babylonians came in and said, we don't like you, Israel, scatter. They did leave some Israelites and some Jews in the city, but people like Ezekiel were cast out into Babylon. And God came to Ezekiel and said, you need to illustrate this message, because the Jews are thinking pretty soon God is going to get justice and we're going to move back into Jerusalem. And there was all this kind of hope. But God said, because of your disobedience, Israelites, I'm going to keep you oppressed. And there's actually going to be a destruction. So Ezekiel, I'm going to have you paint a picture. I'm going to have you illustrate this. And that's what we see in chapter 4 of Ezekiel with the siege of Jerusalem. And the symbolism in this text is incredible. You got the brick that represents the city. You got the battering rams that Ezekiel was basically making a battlefield, kind of like those action figures, those little green and tan men that you used to play with the boys. Well, this is basically what God was saying, is set this up with a frying pan as your barrier, and you're going to lay on your left side for 390 days to represent 390 years of disobedience by the people. And then you're going to flip and you're going to turn and you're going to lay on your right side for 40 days, and that's going to symbolize, the southern kingdom, and it all adds up to 430 years of coming destruction. And God said, Ezekiel, you're going to show the people this. Can you imagine being Ezekiel? Ezekiel is like, this is not the only occasion that God has told him to do some crazy things. I mean, in this occasion, we'll read that God said, hey, you're going to use human excrement as fuel to eat your bread, to symbolize the conditions of what's going to be happening in this destruction. And it just got me thinking, we're not living in the Old Testament, we're living in the New Testament. So what would it look like to illustrate, to symbolize God to our people? Because in essence, because of Jesus, the prophet, the priest who came to be that final sacrifice for all of us, made all of us now capable of being prophets with the Holy Spirit inside of us, telling us to illustrate God's love to this world. When he said, go, make disciples of all nations, he was saying, be an illustration of my love, but also warn of a coming judgment that hasn't happened yet, but we're warned about when Jesus returns, that there's going to be a judgment of the ones who are disobedient to God. It's coming. And we as believers now in the New Testament are called to be an illustration, a painting of God's love for people, telling them, warning them like the prophets did and Ezekiel did, of a coming judgment, a coming destruction. But like in Ezekiel's day, it's not going to be temporary. We need to warn people about an eternal destruction. That's why we're believers. We need to get out there and prove and show people and illustrate the love of God. Are you up to that challenge? Are you up to getting a little bit uncomfortable like Ezekiel was here in the text? If you're not willing to become uncomfortable, you probably aren't willing to go illustrate who God is to the world, because God might be calling you to become uncomfortable. So are you ready to go out and illustrate God's love? If you're already doing that, great. Keep going. It might get more uncomfortable for you, but if not, God has you where He wants you to be. So look in these moments and how you can illustrate God's love to the world. Be blessed, be challenged, be inspired. Have a great day.